as Ruby mentioned, I'm a geoscientist. I work at Archaea Energy, and I work on carbon capture and sequestration projects. So I got my PhD in geological sciences at Stanford, and then I also got my undergrad degree in environmental earth sciences at Dartmouth College. So I guess you could say right now, I work in a dirty business. My company, Archaea Energy, we partner with landfills all around the US, and we develop on-site gas to energy projects. So basically how it works, what I have, can you guys see my slide here?
You can see it.
Okay. Basically how it works is you have a landfill where all of your food and scraps and waste go into. And what this actually is a giant anaerobic digester. And so these little single cellular organisms called Archaea, hence the name of my company, are what break down the waste. And so the main byproducts of this waste as it's breaking down are methane gas and CO2. And so what my company does, their main function is we build these facilities on site. We're a service company for the landfills, and we will process their gas into very high concentrations of methane. And in doing so, we can actually sell this gas into the pipeline, and it'll go into your home and keep you warm in the winter. And really it serves to replace some of the fossil-based methane gas. Methane is the same thing as natural gas. They're interchangeable. And so without having facilities like this, basically what would otherwise happen is the methane and the CO2 would just get released into the atmosphere and exacerbate global warming, or you would burn it first and then release it into the atmosphere. Again, still releasing these greenhouse gases. So what my team does is we work with the other byproduct. We work with the carbon dioxide. And so my job is to identify, develop, and run projects where we can capture the CO2 from our industrial facilities and then store it underground, way below this groundwater, ultimately with the goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and, of course, limiting climate change associated with that. So as part of my job, I have to understand geology all across the US. I have to understand where underground carbon storage is feasible or not. I build mathematical models to determine whether or not we have favorable economics and if we can make money. And I do a bunch of statistical risk evaluations to really understand what are our main exposures and, are there ways that we can actually limit these exposures? So I also have to do a lot of non-sciencey, non-math things. Like I work with my team every day. I build a lot of PowerPoint slides to get management buy-in for our projects. I work very closely with lawyers to make sure we're compliant with all of the regulations that exist, and try to figure out if there aren't regulations yet, what those regulations will be. And I also communicate science to people all the time because we work with people, we work with landowners, we work with landfill owners, and help them to understand the science and how we're going about doing this in a safe and environmentally friendly way. So there's a lot of different aspects to my job, and overall, like I love a lot about my job. I get to do science every day and figure out problems. I get to work with people, and every day I learn something new. I also love that I get to help our world go through this energy transition. I work on a team right now with 9 people, and I am the only female. So that's kind of where what I do and who I am now. I was thinking back and reflecting, okay, what about when I was younger? What was I thinking? Where was I going? And I guess I sort of always knew I was going to be some kind of scientist. My mom used to say I was going to be her doctor and that my older brother was going to be her lawyer. And it was probably because I asked a million questions a day. while my brother used to like to argue a lot and kind of plead his case for various things. And she was right, sort of. My brother did actually go to law school and is a lawyer, and I got my doctorate in geology in the geosciences, so sort of right. But I've always liked understanding how things work. For a really long time, I envisioned myself working in a laboratory. Oh, I'm forgetting my slides. Anyway, well, that's the carbon capture process. But anyway, for a really long time, I envisioned myself working in a laboratory and kind of like uncovering the secrets of life, having these petri dishes, eyedroppers, vials, making little explosions, sort of mad scientist fashion. That was going to be me. So when I got to college, I started the pre-med track thinking I was going to do like an MD, PhD, and do all this biomedical research. So I would be majoring in biology or chemistry, or maybe both of those things. So I didn't quite realize until I had taken a few courses in this discipline that I actually hated spending time in the lab, especially when it was a beautiful day outside. So on a whim, I decided to take a earth sciences class called environmental change. And, it fit my schedule. It sounded vaguely interesting. I didn't think it was going to be too heavy of a workload because I had a lot of other pretty intense classes going on that semester. And ultimately, it was completely eye-opening for me. I learned a lot about really how humans interact with the environment and how we impact our environment, and also vice versa, how our environment impacts us. So it was my first real exposure to things like climate change. I learned about bioaccumulation of toxins in our food chain, and it prompted me to be a vegetarian for a year. And I learned about acid rain. I learned about a lot of global catastrophes, but really, really loved the class. So because of that, I decided to take more classes in the department, and I just loved them. So the other really great part, as it turned out, about earth sciences is that my laboratory was outdoors. So as part of this, I spent 4 months kind of in the field where I was learning how to collect and analyze field data. And so some of our labs included things like sampling a stream to evaluate acid mine drainage, or surveying river landscapes to calculate incision rates, or going across a basin to get gravity data and understand the Earth's structure. So a lot of different types of things we were doing every week. And we camped and we hiked and we cooked out a lot. I saw most of the Western US. So it definitely got me hooked into this science. So of course, when I eventually told my parents that I was majoring in earth sciences and not biology or chemistry, and not going the MD route, they were upset and a little frantic because I was supposed to be the doctor. But alas, my dad figured out that actually you could get jobs as a geologist and my future was not completely lost. So he would mail me newspaper clippings and magazine articles throughout the rest of my college career pretty regularly to show me about different jobs that I could do in this field, because clearly I wasn't thinking about that at all. I was just following what I wanted to do. So anyway, I did graduate with my degree in the earth sciences. And so I guess, the question is, what next? Did I go on to do further studies and get my master's or my PhD in environmental or earth sciences? No, I did actually apply to a bunch of schools and got into them, but I did not go. Maybe I went and I worked outside for an environmental company or at a national park or as a ranger. Nope, I didn't do that either. I left everything behind and I went to work inside on a laptop every day for a big business based in Manhattan. So it was, complete reverse. And really why that was because honestly, I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't ready to go back to school. I wasn't convinced I wanted to be an academic. Um, so I got a job. And as it turned out, the classes I had taken for like spatial evaluation and environmental economics, computer science, all made me actually a pretty marketable candidate for a bunch of jobs. So, and believe it or not, it was actually a really cool job that I got out of college. I worked with companies all over the US, learning all sorts of industries. I got to work with some really smart, talented, devoted, good people. I got really good at building models in Excel. I got pretty good at building PowerPoint presentations. I don't regret the detour for a minute, but ultimately I did know that that wasn't really the path for me. And after 2 years of working, I did go back to school to get my PhD. So then, what about junior high? What do I have any other slides? Okay, I'm forgetting my slides. This is my New York slide. So what about junior high and high school? What was I doing back then? So, believe it or not, there was a time when I was just like you, sitting sitting in school with just an infinite number of paths before me. And, I'd like to tell you that I was the smartest person in my school and knew exactly where I was going and the best at math, or at least really cool. And none of those things were true. But I will say, even as a kid, I always really admired brainy people. So I'm sure you don't have this program now, but when I was a kid, there was a TV show called Inspector Gadget. Um, and it was a cartoon about this guy, Inspector Gadget, who, was really kind of a complete idiot, but solved every single crime with the help of his niece, Penny. And although they never really say it outright in the show, it was Penny that was the real detective. She was a keen observer. She was really brave. And she was a complete nerd. So she had this crazy watch. I have a picture of it here. She had this crazy watch and also this computer book that could basically do everything. This watch could make phone calls. It could be a laser. It could send sonar. It would hack security systems. Um, you might have this now. It's called the iWatch, but that didn't exist, of course, back in the day. And this computer notebook that she had, I'm still waiting for that to be released. But I think it's coming. But anyway, I wanted to be exactly like her, just solving puzzles, solving crimes, solving mysteries, and just by being smarter than everybody else. So I guess, with that, my advice, some advice I'd have for you guys. So even though I feel like I've gone to really great schools, I have a really great job, I do well in my career, I never felt like I was particularly smart as a kid or through most of my life. I always got really good grades, oftentimes better grades than kids who I thought were smarter than me. But at the end of the day, it was really because I studied a lot and I practiced a lot. And if I didn't understand something or was falling behind, I went and I got help. And despite not feeling the smartest, I still got into a really good college. And then when I got to college, I had to dig even deeper because once I got there, I felt like everyone was smarter than me. So I had to learn how to study more efficiently and how to balance my time. And a whole new set of kind of learning skills um, to really keep up the pace. And my first year in college was actually really tough. But my second year got a lot better. Um, and so one of the things I've found, through the years is really it's not necessarily like how smart you are or you think you are that makes the big difference at the end of the day. Because what really is separating people is how much you're willing to work for something. And that's always what I've been willing, that's always what I've been willing to do, is to put in that time. So that's really all that I have to say. I don't think I had any. Oh, develop your brain, exercise your brain. That was the last slide that I had for you guys. But thank you so much for inviting me today. I hope it was worthwhile to listen. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. So.
Thank you, Blair. Your story was very inspiring, and also we're really happy for you for going and following your passion. So very inspiring. Thank you. I have a few questions for you.
Mhm.
My first question is like, I know as a girl, is there any challenges that you faced because you were a girl that you overcame to be who you are today?
Uh, you know, it's possible that there were stereotypes I'm sure there were stereotypes, when I was a kid growing up, and I just never let them in. I think the biggest challenge right now that's not really like a stereotype or anything, um, you know, uh, working against fulfilling, your dreams is more just, I think women in general, it's it's harder. They tend to take up more of like the home, uh, all of the keeping up with your home and your kids. So there just tends to be more on your plate. I feel like that's been the biggest challenge, is trying to balance everything, trying to keep up at work, but also being like the primary caretaker. I have two little kids in the house, so that can be a lot.
Yeah, thank you for that. And also, is there like one opportunity that you got and that you used really well and you're like, dang, I'm glad I got that opportunity? Is there anything like that?
I'm sure there's so many like that. I mean, first of all, I was, just being born into a family where I've had opportunities has been, a huge blessing. Um, I think as a younger student, like in high school, my high school did these programs where you could go and like kind of have these little internships where you could go and kind of work in a field that you were interested in. Um, so I actually got to work in a lab, a bio lab for a couple weeks over the summer, and actually really liked it. And that was a pretty cool opportunity. I came from a town, I didn't even know like what a PhD was until I was at least in junior high. Nobody had a PhD. So I came from a very blue collar town. So it was really cool to just see that that was a job and something that I could do. Um, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And last question, who was your female role model growing up that you really look up to?
Um, you know, when I was growing up, probably I had one teacher that I really, of course, my mother, I looked up to her, but uh, I had a teacher who she really, she really made me think critically. She was a lit teacher, and a lot of energy, kind of always bouncing off the walls. And she had us reading books that were way out of our league, but um, made me question a lot of the ways that I had originally seen the world. And I think that's a really important skill for life. It's a really important skill as a scientist. I mean, it's a really important skill for anybody. And that was the first time I had somebody like, hey, this is what you think. Well, how about there's all these 5 other ways that you could be thinking about this. And yeah, she was definitely a role model in that way, making me kind of challenge my assumptions. Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for inviting me.